My grandmother kept a flock of chickens on that mountain for more than 50 years, and I can hardly remember one of them ever getting sick. She did not have a fancy coop. She did not buy a single thing in a bag with a long list of chemicals on it, and she surely never called a veterinarian for a chicken. And yet her hens were fat and glossy and laid brown eggs with yolks as orange as the sunset right through the coldest winters we had. Meanwhile, folks today will spend a fortune on a store-bought coop and every gadget there is and still lose half their birds the first year and never understand why. Well, tonight I am going to tell you why, and I am going to give you every one of the old ways my grandmother used so that your chickens stay healthy and lay you eggs for years to come. Because here is the thing that nobody tells the folks just starting out. A chicken is a tough old bird. It is not a delicate thing that needs coddling. It has been surviving right alongside man for thousands of years with no help at all. And the people who lose their chickens are almost never losing them to some rare disease or bad luck. They are losing them to a small handful of simple mistakes, the very same mistakes over and over, and every one of them is a thing the old timers knew to avoid without even thinking about it. So pull up a chair and let me show you how the old timers kept a healthy flock of chickens, cheap and easy, the way it was done for generations. Now, before we get into all the ways, let me give you the one idea that the whole thing rests on, because once you understand this, keeping chickens gets a whole lot simpler than folks make it out to be. Here it is. A chicken only truly needs 4 things from you. It needs to stay dry. It needs to stay safe from the things that want to eat it. It needs the right food and grit to eat. And it needs a little room to be a chicken. That is all. Dry, safe, fed right, and room. Get those 4 things right, and your chickens will just about raise themselves and thrive doing it. And nearly every chicken that dies before its time dies because somebody got one of those 4 things wrong. So as we go through these old ways tonight, you keep those 4 words in the back of your mind, because every single one of them comes back to dry, safe, fed, and room. All right, let us start with the first one, and it is the one that surprises folks the most because it is the very opposite of what they expect. The first old way is to keep them dry, not warm. Now this catches everybody by surprise. Folks think a chicken needs to be kept warm like a person does, and they seal that coop up tight as a drum to hold the heat in, and they even hang a heat lamp in there. And that, friends, is how you kill chickens. Because a chicken wears a down coat every day of its life, and it handles the cold just fine, colder than you would ever believe. What a chicken cannot handle is damp. It is the wet and the damp that kills them, that gives them the frostbite and the sniffles and the sickness. And that will kill a bird quicker than any blizzard ever could. So my grandmother's coop was never sealed up tight. It had good openings up high, up above where the birds roosted, so the damp air could rise up and drift right out, while the birds stayed down below out of the direct draft. Dry and airy up top, still and draft free down at the roost. A dry, cold chicken is a happy, healthy chicken. A damp one is a dead one. Never forget that. The second old way is to give them room. More room than you think they need. A chicken that is crowded up too tight with too many others is a miserable, sickly, mean thing. When you pack too many birds into too small a space, 3 bad things happen every time. The sickness spreads through them like wildfire because they are right on top of each other. The droppings pile up faster than the ground can handle and foul everything. And worst of all, the birds get bored and frustrated, and a bored chicken turns mean. They start pecking at each other, pulling out feathers, and once they draw blood, they will turn cannibal and peck a bird to death, and that is an ugly thing to see. My grandmother gave her birds the run of the yard and the orchard all day long, and even the coop itself had plenty of room to spread out. Space is the cheapest medicine there is for a chicken. Give them room to scratch and dust and get away from each other, and half the troubles folks have just never show up. Now the third old way is the most important one of all for actually keeping your birds alive, and it is the one that folks learn the hard way, usually in a single terrible night. You have got to lock them up tight every single evening, because everything in this world wants to eat a chicken. The number one way that folks lose their birds is not sickness at all. It is predators. The fox, the raccoon, the possum, the weasel, the hawk by day, and the neighbor's dog. And they will clean out a whole flock in one night if you give them the chance. So the old rule The ironclad rule is that at dusk, every single evening, when the birds have put themselves to bed on the roost, you go out and you shut that coop up tight and latch it. And here is the part folks get wrong. Chicken wire does not keep a predator out. Chicken wire is made to keep chickens in, and a determined raccoon will tear right through it or reach a paw through and pull a bird apart piece by piece through the wire. What you want is the hardware cloth, that stiff woven metal mesh, and you want it on every window and vent, and you want it buried a foot down into the ground all around the coop, because a fox or a dog will dig right under a wall to get in. Lock them up at dusk, use the hard mesh, and bury it deep. Do that faithfully, and you will keep your flock when your neighbors are losing theirs. The fourth old way is about their food, and it starts with the one thing almost every beginner forgets, and it will slowly starve a bird to death even with a full feeder in front of it. Your chickens must have grit. See, a chicken has no teeth, not one. It cannot chew a single bite of its food. So how does it grind up that hard corn and those seeds and bugs? It swallows little stones. It keeps a pouch inside called the gizzard, full of small hard bits of grit and gravel, and that is where the food gets ground up, those little stones mashing it all together like a mill. And if a chicken has no grit, it cannot digest its food, and it will waste away with a full belly. Now, a bird that ranges free on the ground picks up its own grit as it goes, so the old-timers rarely had to think about it. But if your birds are pinned up on soft ground or in a run, you have got to give them a little dish of coarse grit, and they will take what they need. No teeth, so they need the stones. Never forget the grit. And the fifth old way goes right along with it, and it is what gives you those strong eggs and keeps your hens from breaking down. Your laying hens need calcium and plenty of it. Think about what you are asking of a hen. Nearly every single day, she builds a whole egg inside her, shell and all, and that shell is almost pure calcium. She cannot make it out of nothing. If she does not get enough calcium in her food, she will start pulling it right out of her own bones to make those shells. And before long, you get thin, papery shells that break in your hand and a hen that goes lame and sickly. So the old timers always kept calcium in front of their hens. The classic way is crushed oyster shell in a little dish, set out free, and the hens eat what they need. But my grandmother did something even thriftier. She saved all the eggshells, dried them, crushed them up fine, and fed them right back to the hens. The shell makes the shell. Give your hens their oyster shell or their crushed eggshell, and you will get strong eggs and healthy birds for years. The sixth old way is to let them do what a chicken was born to do, which is to range and forage and hunt. A chicken is not meant to stand in a pen and eat nothing but corn out of a bag. Corn alone makes a fat, unhealthy, poor laying bird, same as it would make a poor diet for you. A chicken in the wild eats bugs, worms, grubs, grass, seeds, and every green thing it can find, and that is where it gets the protein and the vitamins that make it healthy and make those eggs so rich. So my grandmother turned her flock loose to range every single day, and they patrolled that whole homestead, and they paid her back 3 times over for it. They filled their own bellies, so she bought half the feed her neighbors did. They cleared the garden and the yard of ticks and bugs and grubs and every pest there was, better than any poison. And they gave her eggs with yolks so deep orange and so rich you would not believe it, because that is what a bug and grass diet does. Let them range if you possibly can. It is cheaper for you, and it is everything for them. The seventh old way is the simplest of them all, and folks still manage to get it wrong, and it costs them dearly in the heat of summer. Your chickens have got to have clean, cool water in front of them at all times, and I mean at all times. A chicken drinks a surprising amount of water, and a laying hen especially, because an egg is mostly water. If that water runs dry on a hot day, even for a few hours, a hen will stop laying, and if it goes long enough, she will die of the heat, because panting is about all a chicken can do to cool itself. And dirty water, fouled with droppings, spreads disease through the whole flock. So my grandmother checked the water every single day, kept it clean, kept it in the shade, and in the winter she carried out warm water twice a day to keep it from freezing solid. Clean water, always full, never frozen. It is the easiest thing in the world to provide and the easiest thing in the world to forget. The eighth old way is how a chicken keeps itself clean and free of the little pests that torment it, and if you do not provide for it, your birds will suffer. A chicken does not bathe in water. It bathes in dust. It will dig itself a little hollow in some fine dry dirt and work that dust down through all its feathers. And that dust smothers and drives out the mites and the lice that would otherwise crawl all over it, suck its blood, and make it miserable and sickly. So the old timers always made sure there was a dry, dusty spot for the birds to bathe in, up under a bush or in the corner of the run, kept dry out of the rain. And my grandmother would mix a little wood ash from the stove and some fine sand into that dust bath, because the ash does an even better job of killing the mites. If your birds are picking at themselves and looking ragged, the first thing to check is whether they have got a good dry place to dust themselves. A dust bath is a chicken's medicine cabinet. The ninth old way is about your eggs, and it is a habit that keeps your hens laying and keeps them from picking up a terrible bad habit. You collect your eggs every single day, and better yet, twice a day. Now, there are a few reasons the old timers were so faithful about this. A fresh egg left sitting in the nest gets dirty, and it can get stepped on and broken. And here is the real danger. If an egg breaks in the nest and a hen gets a taste of it, she will learn that an egg is good to eat, and once a hen learns to eat eggs, she will start breaking them on purpose and eating your whole day's laying, and she will teach the others to do it too. And it is just about the hardest habit in the world to break once it starts. Collecting the eggs daily stops that before it ever begins. And you want a good clean nest box, one for every 3 or 4 hens, filled with clean straw, and set up off the floor in a little dark and private, the way a hen likes it. Keep the eggs collected and the nests clean, and your hens will lay you clean eggs and never learn any bad tricks. The 10th old way is a hard one, but it is one of the most important, and it is the one that separates a flock that stays healthy from one that gets wiped out. You have got to quarantine any new bird before you add it, and you have got to be willing to cull a sick one. This is how disease works in a flock. It only takes one sick bird to bring in something that can run through your whole flock and kill every last one. So whenever the old timers brought in a new chicken from somewhere else, they never just tossed it in with the others. They kept it separate off by itself for a couple of weeks and watched it close to make sure it was healthy and carrying nothing before it ever met the flock. And when a bird did come down with something catching, as hard as it was, they took it away from the others right quick so it could not spread. A flock is only as healthy as you are careful. Quarantine the new ones, separate the sick ones, and you protect all the rest. Now, the 11th old way is my favorite, because it is the old timers getting something for nothing, letting the chickens do the work themselves. When you want more chickens, you do not need to buy an incubator and fuss over it. You let a broody hen do it for you, the way it has been done since the beginning of time. Every so often a hen will go broody, meaning she gets it in her head to sit on a clutch of eggs and hatch them. She will fluff up and growl at you and sit tight on that nest for 3 weeks, turning the eggs, keeping them at just the right warmth, doing everything exactly right by pure instinct. And then she hatches them out and raises those chicks herself, teaching them to eat and to scratch and keeping them warm under her wings and protecting them fiercer than any guard dog. So my grandmother, when she wanted to grow her flock, would just slip a dozen good eggs under a broody hen and let nature take its course. No incubator, no heat lamp, no fuss. The old hen knows more about raising a chick than you ever will. Let her do it. And the 12th old way is how you carry them through the winter, because winter's where a lot of folks lose their birds by trying too hard to help. I told you at the start that chickens handle cold just fine, and they do, but you have got to let them do it their way. So the old timers used what is called the deep litter method. All through the fall and winter, instead of cleaning the coop out bare, you keep adding a fresh layer of straw or leaves or wood shavings on top of the old, and that deep bed of litter slowly composts down underneath, and it actually gives off a gentle heat and keeps the whole floor dry and warm and clean. And you do not hang a heat lamp, ever, because those things start coop fires every single winter and burn the whole flock alive. And besides, a heated bird never toughens up to the cold, and then one power outage will kill it. Instead, you give them a little extra scratch grain in the evening, because digesting that corn overnight keeps their little furnaces burning and keeps them warm from the inside. Deep dry litter, no heat lamp, a handful of scratch at dusk, and unfrozen water. That is how a chicken was meant to winter, and they will come through it just fine. So let me tie it all back together for you before you go. Every single thing I told you tonight comes right back to those 4 words from the beginning. Dry, safe, fed, and room. Keeping them dry, not warm. The deep litter, the good ventilation, that is keeping them dry. Locking them up tight with the hard mesh, quarantining the new ones, that is keeping them safe. The grit, the oyster shell, the ranging, the clean water, that is feeding them right. And the room to range and dust and lay in peace, that is giving them room. Get those 4 things right, and you will have a healthy, happy flock laying you rich brown eggs for years, and you will do it cheaper and easier than the folks who buy every gadget there is. Now, if you are just starting out and you do not know where to begin, here is the one thing to go check this very evening. Go out to your coop at dusk and look at 2 things. First, is it dry? And is there an opening up high to let the damp air out? And second, is it truly locked up tight where nothing can dig, reach, or chew its way in tonight? Those 2 things, dry and safe, will save you more heartache than anything else you can do. Check them tonight. None of this is hard, and not one bit of it costs much of anything. It is just the way it was always done, back before folks got talked into believing you need a shed full of gadgets and a bag of chemicals to keep a bird that has been keeping itself alive for 10,000 years. The old timers raised strong, healthy flocks with nothing but a dry coop, a locked door, a handful of grit, and a little good sense. And now, friend, you know how to do the very same. So tell me down in the comments, do you keep chickens? And what is the one thing your grandmother or your granddad swore by that I did not mention here tonight? I read every single one, and I always learn something new from you good folks. And if this helped you any at all, and I surely hope it did, do me a kindness and subscribe. And sit a while with us here at the Old Mountain Way, because we are keeping these good old ways alive one at a time, and there will always be a place for you here at this table. You take care of yourself now, and I will see you next time.